By an involved route, refreshed by food, Dill recited his narrative. Having been bound in chains and left to die in the basement, there were basements in Meridian, by his new father who disliked him and secretly kept alive on raw field peas, by a passing farmer who heard his cries for help. The good man poked a bushel pod by pod through the ventilator. Dill worked himself free by pulling the chains from the wall. Still in wrist manacles, he wandered 2 miles out of Meridian where he discovered a small animal show and was immediately engaged to wash the camel. He traveled with the show all over Mississippi until his infallible sense of direction told him he was in Abbott County, Alabama, just across the river from Macomb. He walked the rest of the way. "How'd you get here?" asked Jem. He had taken $13 from his mother's purse, caught the 9 o'clock from Meridian, and got off at Macomb Junction. He had walked 10 or 11 of the 14 miles to Macomb off the highway in the scrub brush lest the authorities be seeking him, and had ridden the remainder of the way clinging to the backboard of a cotton wagon. He had been under the bed for 2 hours, he thought. He had heard us in the dining room, and the clink of forks on plates nearly drove him crazy. He thought Jem and I would never go to bed. He even considered emerging and helping me beat Jem, as Jem had grown far taller, but he knew Mr. Finch would break it up soon. So he thought it was best to stay where he was. He was worn out, dirty beyond belief, and home. "They must not know you're here," said Jem. "We'd know if they were looking for you." "Think they're still searching all the picture shows in Meridian," Dill grinned. "You ought to let your mother know where you are," said Jem. "You ought to let her know you're here." Dill's eyes flickered at Jem, and Jem looked at the floor. Then he rose and broke the remaining code of our childhood. He went out of the room and down the hall. "Atticus," his voice was distant. "Can you come here a minute, sir?" Beneath its sweat-streaked dirt, Dill's face went white. I felt sick. Atticus was in the doorway. He came to the middle of the room and stood with his hands in his pocket, looking down at Dill. I finally found my voice. "It's okay, Dill. When he wants you to know something, he tells you." Dill looked at me. "I mean, it's all right," I said. "You know he wouldn't bother you. You know you ain't scared of Atticus." "I'm not scared," Dill muttered. "Just hungry, I bet." Atticus's voice had its usual pleasant dryness. "Scout, we can do better than a pan of cold cornbread, can't we? You fill this fellow up, and when I get back, we'll see what we can see." "Mr. Finch, don't tell Aunt Rachel. Don't make me go back. Please, sir, I'll run off again." "Whoa, son," said Atticus. "Nobody's about to make you go anywhere but to bed pretty soon. I'm just going over to tell Miss Rachel you're here and ask her if you could spend the night with us. You'd like that, wouldn't you? And for goodness sake, put some of the county back where it belongs. The soil erosion's bad enough as it is." Dill stared at my father's retreating figure. "He's just trying to be funny," I said. "He means take a bath. See there? I told you he wouldn't bother you." Jem was standing in the corner of the room, looking like the traitor that he was. "Dill, I had to tell him," he said. "You can't run 300 miles off without your mother knowing." We left him without a word. Dill ate and ate and ate. He hadn't eaten since last night. He used all of his money for a ticket, boarded the train as he had done many times, coolly chatted with the conductor, to whom Dill was a familiar sight. But he had not the nerve to invoke the rule on small children traveling a distance alone. If you've lost your money, the conductor will lend you enough for dinner, and your father will pay him back at the end of the line. Dill made his way through the leftovers and was reaching for a can of pork and beans in the pantry when Miss Rachel's "Do Jesus" went off in the hall. He shivered like a rabbit. He bore with fortitude her "wait till I get you home, your folks are out of their mind worrying," was quite calm during the "that's all the hair is coming out in you," smiled at her "reckon you can stay one night," and returned the hug at long last bestowed upon him. Atticus pushed up his glasses and rubbed his face. "Your father's tired," said Aunt Alexandra, her first words in hours, it seemed. She had been there, but I suppose struck dumb most of the time. "You children get to bed now." We left them in the dining room, Atticus still mopping his face. "From rape to riot to runaways," we heard him chuckle. "I wonder what the next 2 hours will bring." Since things appeared to have worked out pretty well, Dill and I decided to be civil to Jem. Besides, Dill had to sleep with him, so we might as well speak to him. I put on my pajamas, read for a while, and found myself suddenly unable to keep my eyes open. Dill and Jem were quiet. When I turned off my reading lamp, there was no strip of light under the door to Jem's room. I must have slept for a long time, for when I was punched awake, the room was dim with the light of the setting moon. "Move over, Scout." "He thought he had to," I mumbled. "Don't stay mad at him." Dill got in bed beside me. "I ain't," he said. "I just want to sleep with you. Are you waked up?" By this time I was, but lazily so. "Why'd you do it?" No answer. I said, "Why'd you run off? Was he really hateful like you said?" "Nah." "Didn't you all build that boat like you wrote you were gonna?" "He just said we would. We never did." I raised up on an elbow facing Dill's outline. "It's no reason to run off. They don't get around to doing what they say they're going to do half the time. That wasn't it. They just wasn't interested in me. This was the weirdest reason for flight I'd ever heard." How come? Well, they stayed gone all the time, and when they were home even, they'd get off to their room by themselves. What'd they do in there? Nothing, just sitting and reading. But they didn't want me with them. I pushed the pillow to the headboard and sat up. You know something? I was fixing to run off tonight because there they all were. You don't want them around all the time, Dill. Dill breathed his patient breath, a half sigh. Good night, and Atticus is gone all day and sometimes half the night and off in the legislature, and I don't know what... You don't want them around all the time, Dill. You couldn't do anything if they were. That's not it. As Dill explained, I found myself wondering what life would be like if Jem were different, even from what he was now. What would I do if Atticus did not feel the necessity of my presence, help, and advice? Why, he couldn't get along a day without me. Even Calpurnia couldn't get along unless I was there. They needed me. Dill, you ain't telling me right. Your folks couldn't do without you. They must just be mean to you. Tell you what to do about that. Dill's voice went on steadily in the darkness. The thing is, what I'm trying to tell you is, they do get on a lot better without me. I can't help them any. They ain't mean. They buy me everything I want, but it's now you've got to go play with it. You've got a room full of things. I got you that book, so go read it. Dill tried to deepen his voice. You're not a boy. Boys get out and play baseball with other boys. They don't hang around the house worrying their folks. Dill's voice was his own again. Oh, they ain't mean. They kiss you and they hug you good night and good morning and goodbye and they tell you they love you. Scout, let's get us a baby. Where? There was a man Dill had heard of who had a boat that he rowed across to a foggy island where all the babies were and you could order one. That's a lie. Auntie said God drops him down the chimney. At least that's what I think she said. For once, Auntie's diction had not been too clear. Well, that ain't so. You get babies from each other. But there's this man, too. He has all these babies just waiting to wake up. He breathes life into 'em. Dill was off again. Beautiful things floated around in his dreamy head. He could read 2 books to my 1, but he preferred the magic of his own inventions. He could add and subtract faster than lightning, but he preferred his own twilight world, a world where babies slept, waiting to be gathered like morning lilies. He was slowly talking himself to sleep and taking me with him, but in the quietness of his foggy island, there rose the faded image of a grey house with sad brown doors. Dill? Why do you reckon Boo Radley's never run off? Dill sighed a long sigh and turned away from me. Maybe he doesn't have anywhere to run off to.